Welcome back, my mostly harmless hitchhikers. I'm your quantum-superposed panic management specialist, simultaneously knowing and not knowing where my towel is across infinite realities. You're tuned into a very special edition of the Multiverse Employee Handbook, the only podcast that treats your cosmic insignificance like a particularly unflattering performance review. Today, dear listeners, we're celebrating the approaching Towel Day with a special countdown of the universe's most efficient ways to serve an existence eviction notice on humanity. Consider this episode your ultimate guide to the galaxy's most thoroughly researched methods for planetary termination. Because as a wise man once said, it's far better to know about the end of the world than to be surprised by it while still in your bathrobe searching for a decent cup of tea. I should note that our recent corporate restructuring has taken an unexpected turn after the infinite improbability drive in research and development was accidentally activated during a particularly heated budget meeting. The resulting probability wave transformed our executive board into a hyper-intelligent shade of blue that communicates exclusively through existential sighs and budget amendments. The good news is productivity has actually improved since most employees find it less intimidating to present quarterly reports to a color rather than actual management. Even more concerning, our new office building, which marketing insists on calling the Cosmic Cubicle Complex, appears to have been constructed directly on the planned route of a new hyperspace bypass. The Vogon construction fleet has already marked our planet for demolition, citing terrible poetry submissions and inadequate appreciation of bureaucratic procedure as primary justifications. Their planning notice has apparently been on display in Alpha Centauri for 50 Earth years, which their legal department insists constitutes more than adequate notification under interstellar zoning regulations.
There's no point in acting all surprised about it. All the planning charts and demolition orders have been on display at your local planning department in Alpha Centauri for 50 of your Earth years. So you've had plenty of time to lodge any formal complaints, and it's far too late to start making a fuss about it now.
So grab your electronic thumb, don't forget your babblefish, and most importantly, keep your towel handy as we embark on a cosmic journey through the 10 most scientifically plausible ways the universe might casually end human existence faster than you can say, so long, and thanks for all the fish. Before we plunge headfirst into the terrifying abyss of cosmic extinction scenarios, I should probably explain why we're suddenly obsessed with towels and the end of human civilization.
Oh, no!
For those of you who haven't yet had the pleasure of encountering Douglas Adams' seminal work, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Towel Day falls on May 25th each year, when fans across this insignificant blue-green planet carry towels in tribute to the late author. You see, according to The Hitchhiker's Guide, the fictional guidebook within Adams's series, not our humble podcast, a towel is about the most massively useful thing an interstellar hitchhiker can have. It can provide warmth, serve as a makeshift shelter, be used to sail on methane rivers, ward off the gaze of the ravenous bug-bladder beast of trail, a mind-bogglingly stupid animal that assumes if you can't see it, it can't see you. And of course, dry yourself off if your towel still seems to be clean enough. But Adam's work wasn't just about towels and improbability drives. Beneath its brilliantly absurdist humor lay profound observations about our cosmic insignificance and humanity's stubborn persistence despite it all. His famous opening line about Earth being mostly harmless and its inhabitants spending much of their time worrying about the movement of small green pieces of paper perfectly encapsulates our strange preoccupation with trivial matters in an incomprehensibly vast universe. In that spirit, today's special episode will count down the top 10 scientifically plausible cosmic catastrophes ranked by their potential for human extinction. We'll start with number 10, the scenario most likely to leave a reasonable number of towel-carrying survivors, and work our way down to number 1, where not even knowing where your towel is could save you.
Okay.
The structure is simple. 10 scenarios, each more existentially terrifying than the last, presented with what I believe atoms would appreciate, a blend of scientific accuracy and cosmic absurdism that acknowledges the fundamental ridiculousness of being concerned about extinction while simultaneously being thoroughly concerned about it. As we explore these scenarios, I encourage you to remember the most important words emblazoned on the cover of the fictional Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't panic. After all, most of these scenarios operate on timescales so vast that your immediate concerns should probably remain focused on whether there's enough coffee in the break room to get through Wednesday's team meeting. Our hyper-intelligent shade of blue executives have, with uncharacteristic generosity, agreed to reschedule the apocalypse until after this episode concludes. They've also requested I remind you that in the event of sudden non-existence, all company property must be returned to the nearest quantum probability field, and expense reports from deleted timelines will not be processed under any circumstances. So without further ado, let's dive into our countdown of cosmic termination scenarios, each more improbable than the last, yet still more probable than finding a decent cup of tea anywhere in the galaxy. Number 10. Orbital Debris Cascade, Kessler Syndrome. The problem with filling your orbit with satellites, as it turns out, is eventually you run out of empty space. Earth's current strategy of launching anything with a microchip into low Earth orbit is rapidly approaching what scientists call the Kessler Syndrome, a scenario first described by NASA scientist Donald Kessler in 1978, which I'm certain he pitched to colleagues as, what if we created our own asteroid belt, but made it entirely out of expensive equipment? Here's how it works. Two satellites collide, creating thousands of debris fragments. These fragments then collide with other satellites, creating more debris, which causes more collisions in a cascade that renders entire orbital bands unusable for centuries. It's essentially the cosmic equivalent of knocking over a single domino and somehow ending up with every china shop on the planet simultaneously experiencing a bull invasion. The particularly delightful aspect of this scenario is that our survival as a spacefaring species might be prevented by our own outdated communications equipment. Imagine being unable to leave Earth because you're trapped behind a whirling barrier of your grandfather's old Nokia phones and abandoned Soviet weather satellites. It's like being grounded by your own technological hoarding tendencies. With satellite navigation, communications, weather forecasting, and military systems all disabled, global infrastructure would collapse with impressive efficiency. International trade would falter as ships lose positioning data and planes are grounded. Weather disasters would arrive unannounced, and perhaps most devastatingly, streaming services would go offline, forcing people to actually talk to each other while waiting for the food supply chain to collapse. Survival rate 60 to 80% initially. Though civilization would need to switch from digital dependency to more reliable systems like carrier pigeons and actually remembering where things are located without consulting a glowing rectangle. The good news? Stargazing would improve dramatically once the debris starts burning up in the atmosphere, providing spectacular light shows for the survivors huddled around their non-satellite dependent campfires.
9.
Number 9. Dark matter filament passage. As our cosmic journey drifts through the galaxy, Earth occasionally passes through regions with higher concentrations of dark matter. This mysterious substance, which makes up roughly 85% of the universe's mass, remains almost entirely invisible, mysterious, and mostly harmless, until it isn't. Scientists theorize that dense filaments of dark matter could potentially interact with Earth in ways we don't fully understand, which is physicist speak for something weird might happen, but we're not sure what, so we can't properly panic yet. The effects could range from subtle gravitational anomalies to changes in fundamental particle interactions if we pass through a particularly dense region. What makes this scenario so delightfully uncertain is that dark matter is essentially the universe's quiet introvert, present at every party but refusing to interact with anyone except gravity. We've spent billions on elaborate detection experiments, and dark matter continues to respond with the cosmic equivalent of leaving us unread. If Earth were to drift through an exceptionally dense dark matter filament, the results might include increased planetary heating from weakly interacting massive particles colliding with Earth's core, subtle changes to nuclear decay rates, or gravitational effects that could trigger tectonic instability. All of which sounds terribly scientific until you realize it translates to the ground might get uncomfortably warm, radioactive, or prone to sudden rearrangement. Survival rate 50 to 60%, with survivors left wondering what exactly happened and developing wildly inaccurate mythologies to explain it. Future civilizations would likely attribute the catastrophe to displeasing the gods rather than the actual culprit, essentially being ghosted by most of the universe's matter. The true irony is that we'd be wiped out by something we've spent decades trying desperately to detect, only to finally notice it when it's doing something impossible to ignore, like a cosmic version of your upstairs neighbor who seems silent until precisely 2 a.m. Number 8. Geomagnetic reversal. Earth's magnetic field is remarkably similar to that colleague who's been threatening to quit for years. Temperamental, increasingly unstable, and prone to complete reversals of position. Our planet's internal dynamo has flipped its polarity hundreds of times throughout Earth's history, with the last full reversal occurring approximately 780,000 years ago. We're currently overdue for another flip, and the magnetic field has already weakened by about 9% in the past 170 years. The trouble begins during the transitional period, when our planetary force field, which normally protects us from cosmic radiation and solar particles, weakens significantly and may develop multiple poles. Picture Earth's magnetosphere as a cosmic umbrella that suddenly decides to fold inside out during a particularly intense radiation storm. During this transition, which could last centuries or happen relatively quickly, geologically speaking, Earth's surface would be bombarded with increased radiation, satellite networks would fail, navigation systems would go haywire, and migratory animals would find themselves inexplicably vacationing at the wrong pole. Imagine millions of confused birds and sea turtles showing up at your doorstep, demanding directions and looking extremely judgmental about humanity's role in their navigational confusion. The increased radiation would cause elevated cancer rates, potential mutations in surface-dwelling organisms, and might trigger atmospheric changes as cosmic particles interact with our atmosphere. electronics would suffer widespread disruption, and the spectacular global auroras, while certainly Instagram-worthy, would be a poor consolation prize for the collapse of technological civilization. Survival rate, 15 to 25%, with survivors needing to perfect the art of living underground or developing radiation-proof sunscreen with an SPF rating requiring scientific notation. Compass manufacturers would experience a brief period of frantic business activity as they rush to update their products, only to realize that everyone who might purchase their newly accurate instruments has already been reduced to hunting and gathering in low-radiation mountain valleys. The true tragedy is that future archaeologists might discover our civilization's remains and incorrectly assume we all perished because we couldn't figure out which way north was, like an entire species that simultaneously lost its cosmic car keys. As we continue our descent through increasingly efficient cosmic termination methods, remember that panic is counterproductive, largely because the universe rarely provides advance notice for these events. Rather like that meeting your manager schedules for 4:55 p.m. on a Friday. Number 7. Rogue black hole encounter. Space, as a wise man once said, is big, really big. You just won't believe how vastly, hugely, mind-bogglingly big it is. Which makes it particularly annoying when black holes don't stay where they're supposed to. Astronomers estimate there could be millions of stellar mass black holes wandering through our galaxy, having been ejected from their original star systems by asymmetric supernova explosions or gravitational interactions. These cosmic vagabonds travel silently through the void, their presence betrayed only by gravitational effects on nearby objects. It's rather like having millions of invisible, extremely dense party crashers drifting through the galaxy, except instead of drinking all your beer, they drink space-time itself. A rogue black hole passing through our solar system would be remarkably inconsiderate, gravitationally speaking. Even at a distance of several astronomical units, it could significantly perturb Earth's orbit, potentially ejecting us from the habitable zone or sending us on a collision course with another planet. The cosmic equivalent of someone rearranging your carefully organized desk while you're away getting coffee. The real kicker is we might not see it coming until it's already disrupting our orbit. Black holes are, rather famously, black. Detecting one headed our way would require noticing subtle gravitational effects on other celestial bodies, essentially waiting for the astronomical equivalent of furniture starting to slide mysteriously across the room, before realizing there's an invisible elephant doing the conga through your living room. If Earth were nudged into a more elliptical orbit, we'd experience extreme seasonal variations, with scorching summers when closer to the sun and ice ages during the more distant part of our orbit, rather like office climate control, but on a planetary scale and slightly more lethal. Survival rate, 10 to 15%, mostly concentrated in those who remembered to pack not just a towel, but an entire self-sufficient habitat designed to function in extreme temperature variations. The survivors would likely spend a lot of time arguing about whether being relocated to the cosmic equivalent of an efficiency apartment with terrible heating was really preferable to extinction. Future generations might develop seasonal migration patterns that make Canadian geese look positively sedentary by comparison. Number 6. Intense solar flare. Coronal mass ejection. Our sun, that reliable yellow dwarf star we orbit with such provincial pride, occasionally likes to remind everyone who's really in charge of the solar neighborhood. It does this through coronal mass ejections, massive bursts of plasma and magnetic field that billow out from the sun's surface like a cosmic belch after a particularly spicy meal. In 1859, a solar storm known as the Carrington event hit Earth, causing telegraph systems to spark, shock operators, and continue working even when disconnected from power sources. This was rather impressive for 19th century technology, rather like your grandmother's rotary phone inexplicably accessing Twitter during a power outage. Now imagine a similar event, but significantly more powerful, hitting our modern technology-dependent civilization. The electromagnetic pulse would instantly destroy most unshielded electronics, from the power grid to satellites to your carefully curated collection of digital cat videos. Transformers would explode, power lines would melt, and the internet, that seemingly ethereal entity, would reveal its surprisingly vulnerable physical underpinnings. The particularly delightful aspect of this scenario is that we would see it coming. Solar observatories would detect the ejection and calculate its arrival time with reasonable accuracy, but we'd be largely powerless to stop it. It's the cosmic equivalent of watching a water balloon approach your face in slow motion while being firmly strapped to your chair. Without electricity, modern civilization would rapidly deteriorate. Water purification systems would fail. Food distribution would collapse. Medical facilities would be limited to techniques available before the electrical age. Banking records stored electronically might vanish entirely, leading to the awkward situation where no one can remember exactly who owes what to whom, which might actually be the one silver lining in this electromagnetic cloud.
Yay!
Survival rate, 5 to 10%, primarily among those communities already living with limited electrical dependency, or those quick enough to construct Faraday cages around essential equipment. The aftermath would feature a peculiar statistical anomaly showing higher survival rates among those who own digital watches, not because the watches would be particularly useful, they wouldn't be, but because people who wear digital watches tend to be the sort who also own inexplicably large collections of canned goods and hand-cranked radios. Number 5. Solar micronova. While our Sun generally maintains a predictable middle management approach to stellar behavior, reliably showing up, providing adequate illumination and only occasionally threatening to consume its nearest planets, it may be capable of more dramatic performances than we give it credit for. A solar micronova is essentially a localized nova event, a massive eruption affecting a small portion of the Sun's surface rather than the entire star. It's like discovering your normally reserved department head has a secret life as an explosive jazz drummer on weekends. The evidence for such events comes from observations of other similar stars and geological records, suggesting periodic extreme solar outbursts. During a micronova, a small section of the Sun's surface would release an extraordinary flare, temporarily increasing luminosity and emitting massive coronal mass ejections that would make the Carrington event look like a static shock from your office's carpeting. The resulting electromagnetic devastation would be similar to scenario number 6, but with the added complication of intense radiation exposure that would strip away portions of our protective ozone layer. Earth would receive the cosmic equivalent of both an electromagnetic pulse and a radiation bath simultaneously, rather like having your electronics fried while also receiving the world's most aggressive exfoliation treatment. Surface life would face lethal radiation levels, particularly once the ozone layer developed continent-sized holes. The oceans would provide some protection for marine life, though shallow water ecosystems would still be devastated. Underground bunkers would offer radiation shielding, but emerging would require either the patience to wait for atmospheric recovery or some very creative full-body sunscreen application techniques. Survival rate, 1 to 5%. Mostly those who happen to be in the planetary equivalent of milliways, the restaurant at the end of the universe, which is to say very deep underground facilities with sustainable food production and adequate radiation shielding. The survivors would develop a new calendar system marking time from what they'd call the Great Solar Tantrum. And future generations would evolve to treat the surface as a mythical realm of legend, rather like how current office workers regard the executive floor. And with that cheery thought about radiation-scorched planets and underground survivors developing new calendar systems, we'll pause our countdown of cosmic termination events.
Wait, what?
That's right. We've reached the halfway point in our annihilation anthology, and it seems like the perfect moment to leave you wondering what could possibly be worse than the scenarios we've covered so far. After all, what kind of cosmic tour guide would I be if I didn't leave you hanging over the precipice of existential dread for at least a week? Our hyper-intelligent shade of blue executives have reviewed the engagement metrics and determined that splitting our apocalypse catalog into 2 parts maximizes both your anxiety and our download statistics. A win-win by corporate standards.
Oh.
Next week, we'll continue our countdown with extinction scenarios 4 through 1, where the survival percentages become so mathematically minuscule that we'll need scientific notation just to express how thoroughly doomed we'd be. We'll explore asteroid impacts that make the dinosaurs' bad day look like a minor inconvenience, magnetar bursts that deliver both lethal radiation and cosmic sunburn simultaneously, supernovas that give new meaning to the phrase performance review from hell, and our #1 scenario, which might just be the universe's most perfect game over event. The good news is that this intermission gives you an entire week to locate your towel, practice your don't panic face in the mirror, and perhaps get your affairs in order. Though I'm not entirely sure what affairs would matter in the face of, say, a physics-rewriting vacuum decay bubble. So, until next Tuesday, this is your quantum coherent correspondent, reminding you that in the multiverse of cosmic threats, we're all just improbably organized collections of atoms waiting to be rearranged into something considerably less conscious. Keep your towel handy, your expectations appropriately calibrated, and remember, if you see a Vogon construction fleet in orbit before our next episode, feel free to leave a 1-star review. It would be the least they deserve.
The Multiverse Employee Handbook was created by Rob Corrigan. The host, David, is a professional voice actor who has digitized his voice through ElevenLabs voice cloning technology. All episode thumbnails are created with OpenAI, and music and sound effects come from Pixabay, which are generated by human artists. Everything else, the writing, jokes, research, sound editing, and coffee consumption, is 100% human-made by a human. No cats are harmed in the making of this podcast. Visit our website for more information about the Multiverse Employee Handbook.